Chapter 9. Institutionalized. We left the crater a few weeks after arriving there with a larger congregation. The glowing sea was no more. I had drained it of its radiation, and the creatures that once called it home were now under my control. Eventually, the people of the Commonwealth would realize that it was safe and would begin to slowly settle it. I allowed the pool at the bottom of the crater to retain its radiation so that it and the Whately Research Facility could be turned into holy sites. I created temples around both and left a small number of acolytes to tend to them. I led the group north into Boston. We needed to begin making a name for ourselves, and the best way to do that was to go somewhere where there were plenty of people to interact with. We encountered a few pockets of raiders and super mutants who were promptly dealt with. During the skirmishes, I provided defense, while the acolytes and trappers handled the actual fighting. Mayroon was extremely aggressive, dashing into combat and ripping into the enemies with admirable ferocity. As each fight died down against raiders, we allowed the few surviving members the chance to join us and earn forgiveness for their crimes. We did not spare super mutants, however. They were too unpredictable, and they had no way of reproducing beyond kidnapping humans and infecting them with the same virus that created them. Slowly but surely, we made our way to Diamond City. I wanted this to be our first stop because I needed people to understand what the Church of Adam was becoming. The size of the congregation surprised the gate guards.
"Hold up there!"
One of the guards called out as we approached. I stopped, and the rest of the acolytes followed my lead. "What's all this? Who are you people?" he asked as he approached us. Mayroon tried putting himself in between the guard and myself, but I pet his leg to calm him down. "It's all right, Mayroon. He's just doing his job." Mayroon looked down at me to be sure I was all right before stepping aside. I gave the guard a smile. "I'm sorry about that. He's very protective." The guard stared wide-eyed at me from inside his helmet. "You tamed a damn deathclaw?" I shook my head. "No, he's my friend. He's always been tame. We just make sure he stays well-fed." The guard shook his head. "Anyway, who are you people? What's your business here in Diamond City?" Tapriya stepped forward as we'd practiced. "We are members of the Church of Adam. This is High Priestess Merida. We have come to trade and offer help however we can. We have doctors, cooks, engineers, hunters, and experts of all kinds. Our services are at your disposal while we're here." "The Church of Adam?" the guard groaned. "Look, we don't really need a bunch of religious lunatics running around." "Excuse me, sir," I interrupted, "but as I understand it, Diamond City is open to anyone who is willing to trade, spend caps, or looking for a room for the night. We have only peaceful intentions, we have caps to spend, and we have trade to offer. I doubt the mayor would appreciate you sending a few hundred people away when they could have spent caps and helped the city." The guard seemed flustered at the logic. "Well, what about that thing?" He pointed at Mayroon. "He'll behave so long as no one antagonizes him or threatens us," Tapriya answered. "You saw for yourself how he listened to Merida." The guard groaned as he tried to think of a way of not letting us in. "This is the part where you say, 'Welcome to Diamond City,'" I smirked. Yeah, the guard sighed. He stepped aside and waved us through. "Welcome to Diamond City, no funny business, and keep your noses clean." I thanked him and led the congregation into the city. It took some time for all of us to file in the stairwell that led up to the city's main entrance. Diamond City was built into the remains of Fenway Park, and the main stairwell opened up in the middle of the stands to reveal the city that now engulfed the stadium. Unlike in the game, Diamond City encompassed the whole of the field as well as the stands. It teemed with people and businesses of all sorts. The amount of people we had was larger than any trade caravan, and we would take up all the beds in a number of different hotels. Everyone was free to explore and trade, but I left specific instructions not to try and preach or convert. We wanted people to see us as peaceful and unintrusive. If there was an opportunity to help or perform a good deed, the congregation understood that they should take that opportunity and simply explain that that is what is expected of the church. Tapriya was placed in charge of finding a space available that we could use as a small place of worship. A building or shack would suffice for now. She was given the funds to purchase the place if necessary. Meanwhile, Mayroon and Adam escorted me through the city to the headquarters of Diamond City Radio. The building wasn't as small as the game made it out to be, but it was more humble and more cramped than the others around it. I knocked on the door and got a chuckle out of hearing the host over the speaker stutter about someone being at the door. He played some music so he could answer. When the door opened, an older man jumped back with a yelp as he caught sight of Mayroon. The door slammed shut once more. I laughed and called through the door, "It's all right, sire. He won't bite. He's just keeping me safe is all. I was wondering if I might speak with you." "You get that monster out of here," was the man's reply. "Sir," I sighed, "there's nothing stopping us from coming in if we wanted to. I'd prefer if you just opened the door so we could speak." "What the hell do you want?" he called back in a panic. "I'd just like to make a simple announcement over the radio," I replied. "I'd be happy to pay you for the airtime." "You think I'll open the door while there's a damn deathclaw outside?" he asked. "If you like, I can have Adam take him a little ways away," I said. "But he won't go far. He likes to make sure I'm safe." There was a long pause before the man responded. "Fine, go ahead and have it go as far away as you can get it." I looked at Mayroon and gave him an apologetic smile. "Go on then. Let me get this business done. Then we can see if we can find you some nice cooked meat." Mayroon let out a guttural protest, but turned and stomped off. Adam just chuckled and followed him so that no one would bother the young Deathclaw. I waited until they were several yards off before knocking on the door again. "All right, sir, he's gone." The door opened, and the man looked down at me. What kind of girl has a Deathclaw as a pet, anyway? I chuckled. "He's not my pet. But that's neither here nor there. Can we discuss what I came here for, please?" His face crinkled in appraisal. "And what might that be? You wanted to make some sort of announcement?" I nodded. "Precisely. And what kind of announcement could a little girl like you need to make?" he asked. I smiled up at him. "I just wanted to let some people know that I'm on my way and that they can get ready for me." He looked confused. "You're just wanting to let people know you're on your way? Are you crazy?" "It's really important," I insisted. "If I don't let them know I'm coming, they won't open the doors for me. They're really paranoid." "Why don't you just send a letter?" he asked crassly. I shook my head. "The mail doesn't get there. Please. Like I said, I'm happy to pay for the airtime. I just need a minute or so." The old man crossed his arms and grumbled as he thought it over. 100 caps. Take it or leave it." "Done!" I exclaimed with glee. I turned and waved to Adam. "Adam, I need 100 caps, please." "Yes, High Priestess," Adam responded as he jogged over. He sifted through his bags and counted out 100 caps, then handed them over to the old man. "Can't believe I'm actually doing this," the man grumbled as he took the caps. He motioned for me to follow him in. "Come on then, let's get this over with." I giggled as I skipped into the radio station and followed him to his chair. "Give me a second to get things ready, then you can make your announcement," he said as he put his headphones on. I smiled and nodded as I watched him closely. Just as he slipped the headphones on, the song ended. It occurred to me that he was dragging out the conversation to time it with the end of the song he'd put on. If that was true, he was more cunning than he'd let on, and the thought of that tickled me. "That was Atom Bomb Baby by the Five Stars," he said as the music finished up. "Always a classic ditty to raise the spirits." Now, before we get to our next set, we have a quick announcement from today's sponsor, Merida Oradoom. Take it away, Merida. He looked at me and nodded toward the microphone. I had done my fair share of streaming back in my first life, and more than my fair share of public speaking in theaters, so I was prepared for the sudden call to perform. I stepped forward. Good day, people of the Commonwealth. My name is Merida'sIsekaiAdventures, High Priestess of the Church of Adam. First, I would like to announce that the church has turned over a new leaf, and that should you see a member in the Commonwealth and need aid, we are happy to provide it. We are currently looking for a place in Diamond City to set up a proper church building so that travelers can receive assistance if they need any. Second, my tone shifted to a slightly less cherubic one, to one with a bit more authority. I would like to send a message to the Institute. I know you have people listening in, so pay close attention to what I'm about to say. I will be arriving at the Commonwealth Institute of Technology tomorrow at noon. I would appreciate it if the heads of all 5 departments met me there and escorted me into the institute proper so that we could discuss things. Please understand that if my request isn't honored, I will force my way in. I extended my will to the institute's underground facility and shook the stone around it just enough to get their attention. You should be feeling things getting a bit shaky right about now. Understand, that was me, and that I can do much worse if provoked. I look forward to our meeting tomorrow and hope we can have a fruitful and productive discussion. Thank you all for your time, and may Adam smile and bless the Commonwealth. I looked up at the old man who seemed horrified that I had just threatened the Institute, the boogeyman of the Commonwealth, on his radio show. He let dead air linger for a few moments as he collected his wits before laughing and trying to play it off as a joke. Kids these days, huh, folks? He cleared his throat. Saved up a lot of caps just to pull a prank like that. Anyway, let's keep things lively and enjoy some music. He tapped a button on his console to mute the microphone and play the next few songs. Whirling on me, he screamed, "Are you mad? If I had known you were going to be addressing the Institute, I never would have let you on the air." I grinned. I know. That's why I was vague. But you don't have to worry. There won't be any reprisal. "Says you!" he growled. "Get out of here! I have to think about what I'm going to do now." I simply smiled and offered the man a curtsy before taking my leave. Adam and Mayroon were already at the door waiting for me. "Are you all right, High Priestess?" "We heard shouting," Adam asked. "I'm fine," I replied as I reached out and pet Mayroon's inquisitive snout. He was upset about my announcement is all. Let's go check on Priya and see if she's found a place yet. We set out to hunt for Priya. It didn't take long thanks to Mayroon's ability to track down her scent. We spent the rest of the day helping her find any kind of open space, but it didn't seem like any were available. We did find out that there were several spaces which had been abandoned, but since they were paid off to the city, we wouldn't be allowed to occupy them. Instead, we decided that we would look into setting up in the ground below. I could create a space for us easily enough, but we would want to get the mayor's approval first. The next day, I left with Adam and Mayroon in tow. I left Priya in charge with meeting the mayor and discussing our proposals for the new underground church. The congregation would remain in Diamond City, doing what they could to help those who needed help, and supporting Priya in her efforts. Adam and Mayroon escorted me north. We crossed the Tucker Memorial Bridge and continued straight ahead. A few blocks later, we came to the ruins of the Commonwealth Institute of Technology. The grounds were empty, but I could sense a hum of activity below ground. 3 large buildings made up the campus's primary grounds, one on the left, another center, and finally one on the right. I sighed and shook my head. "Adam, what time is it?" 5 minutes before noon, he replied. "Well, I suppose we're early," I said. "We'll wait a few minutes. If they don't show up, I'll have to kick the door in." "What should we do if you have to force your way in?" Adam asked. "Just stick close and follow my instructions," I sighed. "If they do appear, Try not to get too startled. They'll probably teleport in, and that can be loud and surprising. Adam was about to respond when a man in a long, dark coat exited the center building. He quietly walked toward us and stopped only a few yards away. He stared at us for a few moments before focusing on me. "You are Merida'sIsekaiAdventures?" he asked. I nodded. "I am, but you are not one of the department heads." "Of course I am," he replied. "My name is—" "You're a synth," I interrupted, making my impatience clear. "If the department heads don't appear by noon, I will make good on my promise to force my way in." "What makes you think you could do that?" he asked. "You're just a little girl." "I assume others are watching and listening," I responded. My eyes darted about to look for cameras. "Perhaps," was his only response. "Then they should pay attention, because the rumbling they felt yesterday wasn't a trick," I said. A series of stone spikes impaled the man, then ripped him apart in a burst of components, fake skin and fake blood. I looked at Adam. "How much longer before noon?" 3 minutes, High Priestess," he replied quickly. He was surprised at the man's sudden death, and more surprised that the man was nothing but machinery on the inside. I willed the stone spikes to form into a respectable throne for me to sit in. Tick-tock. We waited silently for a minute until a group of men and women appeared in a burst of electricity and atmosphere. I smiled at them as I rested my head on my fist. "I take it I'm finally speaking with the department heads?" "Indeed you are," a man in his mid-50s said. "My name is Clifford Marston. I am the director of the Institute. These are my department heads." "Forgive me," I said quickly, "but I'd rather wait to be introduced to everyone. I know etiquette demands we all know one another before we begin speaking. But with you here, Director Marston, I think I would prefer to speak with you. Your department heads may listen for now." Marston looked back at the others, who could only shrug. He looked back at me and cleared his throat. "The ground moving like that? How did you do that?" I shook my head. I know introductions may have been sidelined, but the proper thing to do would be to invite me and my friends inside where we could speak more comfortably. "Of course," Marston quickly agreed. He wasn't in control of the situation, but he could mitigate the impropriety. He looked back at one of the women in his group. "Dr. Feese, would you be so kind as to fetch a teleporter band for our guest?" "3 of them, please," I insisted. "My High Zealot will be joining me, as will Mayroon. He may look frightening, but he won't attack unless provoked." "Miss, I'm sure you can appreciate how a Deathclaw in our facility would be less dangerous than me by far," I finished Marston's protest for him. My expression was deadly serious. "I'll just go get 3, Dr. Feese said, trying to cut the tension. She disappeared in a flash. "I like her," I smiled. "Quite sensible. Now, while we wait, I would like to formally introduce myself." I allowed the stone to gently lower me to the ground as it reformed back into the ground. I performed a small curtsy. "My name is Merida'sIsekaiAdventures, High Priestess of the Church of Adam, daughter of Adam, granddaughter of Mars. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance." Marston watched and listened. It was clear he wasn't used to such an outdated or medieval form of introduction. He responded with a clumsy bow, attempting to meet my formality with something similar. "The pleasure is mine." I smiled, appreciative of his effort. "This is High Zealot Adam Whately, and this is Mayroon, my dear friend." Marston gave them both a nod. "It's an honor to have you both with us." Adam simply nodded. Mayroon snorted. I chuckled. "As to your question about the ground," I grinned, "Adam has blessed me with command over all forms of nuclear energy, as well as the ability to manipulate stone, and command over the beasts of the wasteland. They are mine to do with as I please." "Is that how you command the Deathclaw?" Marston asked. "His name is Mayroon," I corrected him. "But no, I do not use my power on Mayroon. He is an intelligent Deathclaw and follows me of his own free will." An intelligent Deathclaw? A man who appeared to be in his late 30s echoed. Fascinating. Would you be willing to run some tests? Non-intrusive, of course. He was smart enough to address Mayroon directly. Mayroon considered the question before looking at me. That's up to you, I told Mayroon. You don't have to if you don't want to. He seems genuinely curious. And if he does try anything, you can eat him. That brought a toothy grin to Mayroon's features, and he nodded at the man. The man looked nervous. Ah, excellent. And be sure that I will not harm you at all. I prefer life. An excellent perspective, I giggled. What's your name, sir? Dr. Robert Tanner, he replied, head of the bioscience department, at your service. A burst of electricity and Dr. Feese reappeared. Here we are, Dr. Feese announced. 3 teleporter bands. Marston took the bands and handed 2 to me and 1 to Adam. Excellent. Now, all you need to do is place these on your wrists. We'll signal the engineer in charge of the teleporter and you'll be brought safely into the Institute. I put my teleporter band on, then put Mayroon's on him. Once we were ready, I looked at Marston. We're ready. Marston nodded. Very well. Dr. Feese, is everything prepared? Yes, Director, Dr. Feese replied. However, I don't think... Activate the bands, Marston barked. There was a clap of thunder and a bright light. An instant later, and I was greeted with a sterile metal wall. Confused, I turned to find a thick glass partition with armed men and women in white Kevlar armor with laser rifles staring back at me. I looked around and couldn't find Adam or Mayroon at all. I looked at the men and women in armor. What is this? Where am I? Where are my friends? One of the men stepped forward. This is who they wanted in maximum security? A little girl? Have they lost their mind? Oh, they lost their mind, all right. Here I was, trying to be as polite and diplomatic as possible, and they teleported me into a cell? Did they think me shaking their entire facility was nothing but theatrics? Did they miss how I destroyed that synth? For such intelligent people, they were extremely stupid. I scowled fiercely and growled, I will give you all this one chance to let me out right now. At the moment, I don't blame anyone, but the director, for imprisoning me and my friends. However, if you don't let me out this instant, I will not show you any mercy. The guards looked at each other before bursting into laughter. All but one of them were dead an instant later, as stone spikes impaled them and skewered them to the far wall. The glass partition shattered, and I stepped out. I could have kept them alive by simply capturing them, but I wanted to send a message. If they thought this treachery would end peacefully, they would be sadly mistaken. I stepped out of the cell and looked around. The stone pulled the last remaining guard to me, and I placed a hand on his helmet, summoning the heat from radiation to melt my way through the armor and before stopping just shy of his face. I glared at the guard. Where are the other cells? Where are my friends? Please, he cried. Please don't hurt me. Tell me where they are and I'll let you live, I hissed. Now! Down the hall in the next few cells, I can show you, he panicked. You're damn right you will, I growled. The stone dragged the man along with me, carving the floor apart as we went. I marched down the hall until I found another set of guards. They turned and raised their weapons just in time for a pillar of stone to crush them into the ceiling. The remains of the guards stretched and fell to the floor in a shower of gore. Adam ran to the glass cell wall on my left. Mayroon was in the cell to my right. 2 minor nuclear explosions set them free. High Priestess, are you all right? Adam asked, while Mayroon growled at the guard I had captive. I'm fine, Adam, I assured him. Are you both all right? They both nodded. I looked up to find one of the cameras and pointed at it. You people have one chance to surrender. Bring your director here in the next 5 minutes, or I will crush this entire place and leave you all buried in the rubble. I must admit that I was surprised when the director was brought down in less than half the time I'd given them. The department heads hauled Marston in and threw him before me. I stared down at the man, nuclear fire radiating from my eyes. I came here to discuss an alliance which would benefit the whole of the wasteland, I said angrily. I wanted to work with the Institute to bring humanity back to its pre-war glory. I am greeted with betrayal. You came with the threat of destruction hanging over our heads, Marston spat. That is not a threat, I replied. It's a promise I make to everyone who stands in the way of bringing peace to the wasteland. Luckily for the rest of your people, I won't hold them responsible if they choose to work with me after you're gone. What? I'm not going any... Marston's protest was cut off as a tiny nuclear explosion created in his throat splattered his head into a million pieces. I looked up at the department heads, my tone brooking no refusal. The rest of you will explain the former director's stupidity. You will explain how he wrongfully imprisoned me. You will explain how you will be joining me in a surge of effort to tame the wasteland. And you will never try something like this again. Have I made myself clear? The group nodded in terror. Director Tanner, I said, essentially promoting Dr. Tanner on the spot. Please show my friends and I to a comfortable room. We have a great deal to talk about, but for now, we need a rest.